Welcome back to the Distressed Princess. I'm Rhonda. In today's video, I'm participating in the Thrift Flip Road Trip. Our host is Sammy Veltri from Unicorn Dust Designs and the crafting cousins Kay and Trish. My leg of the road trip is sunny Southern Illinois at the Marion Goodwill. This video is also the second and final part of my Christmas in July series. I spent an awful lot of time in the Goodwill store in the glass section, so I found some of these ceiling fan globes I thought I could use, and one of these old jar candle shades. And in the wood section, I ran into this old thing, and I'll show you how I transform it. And I also picked up this old Christmas album just for the cover. And here's everything I got on my thrift flip shopping trip. Now let's get started with the Christmas DIYs. I'm going to start off by washing all of my glassware in some soapy bleach water. For DIY number 1, I'm using 3 different sizes of these glass shades. And you're also going to need some clear silicone or E6000. Now keep your mind open. We're going to build a Christmas tree. The middle size one stacks on top of the largest one. And you want to move it around and make sure you get an idea of where the contact points are. Like where these 2 pieces of glass actually connect. And then you use your E6000 or in my case the clear silicone and you glue them together. And the top piece actually is not a ceiling fan globe. I think it is a wall sconce globe because it has a closed end. It doesn't have the open end on the bottom. So as you guessed it, we're going to glue that on the top. Make absolutely sure that your adhesive is cured. I waited overnight before continuing on. Now we're going to paint it up. You could use any kind of white paint that would be suitable for adhering to glassware, but I am really loving the Fusion mineral paint. It is sticking to everything that I would use chalk paint with. So there's links in my description box. You know I'm an affiliate, so I can hook you up with some wonderful Fusion mineral paint. And I used 2 coats on my glass Christmas tree. Now I'm going to antique it just using some nutmeg brown acrylic paint, and don't worry, it's going to look like I'm heavy-handed with it, but I'm not one that I like to make everything just look brown after I've painted it white. So I'm going to put kind of a dry brush layer of the brown paint, but I am going to go back over it again with more white paint, and you'll see the difference. So here it is toward the end of the brown paint treatment. And now watch what happens when you go over that brown with some white. So the brown is still showing through, but just a hint, and it doesn't look, dirty. It just looks antiqued. For the star, I'm using this snowflake ornament that came from the Dollar Tree last year. Now, mind you, I've not bought any new Christmas things for this Christmas series. Everything that I'm using has come from Goodwill and just whatever little pine sprigs or little decorations I took out of my shed. So these are all made without having to drag out all your Christmas decorations. I didn't really like the jewel center of the snowflake. It was a little too blingy for my antique tree, so I just put some white paint over that. For the most part today, I'm using my Starbond glue in a lot of these projects because when I really do need it to hold, if it's a precarious little situation like attaching this star to the top of this tree, I need something that's going to hold quickly and strong. So I'm using the thick Starbond glue. And you'll put that on one piece, so I'm going to put that on the glass part. And then the spray can accelerator gets sprayed on the other part, so I'm going to spray that on the snowflake. And then you attach the 2 together, and the hold is almost instant. You just have to hold it for a few seconds, and it's there. It's holding and good. Now for decorating the tree, I'm using some of this scrap ribbon that came from burlapfabriconline.com. And they are very, very reasonable. If you need burlap for any of your projects or ribbon like this, they also have linen. I'll include a link in my description box, and you can go to town shopping on their website. But I am going to try to make some little spirally, what do you call them? Like ribbons falling down a tree. And I've wrapped the ribbon around the top of the tree, and I'm securing it with my Starbond glue. The two pieces will drape down the left and right sides of the tree. I will make two more, but at this point I hadn't decided that yet. The next step that I did was I wanted this ribbon to be curled, and so I had a great idea. Maybe I could just use my curling iron and hairspray. So I sprayed the hairspray on the ribbon first, and I let that dry. And I had my curling iron heated up to 400 degrees, and I just rolled it up like I would do my hair. I held it in place for about 10 seconds, and then I let it go to see what would happen. And my idea actually worked. So if you want to curl some fabric ribbon this way, I don't see anything wrong with it. Just be careful that you're not using it around any place where you used any glues, because some of the glues are very flammable. I know hairspray is too, but you know, that's fine. We use hairspray and curling irons on our hair all the time. Just stay away from the glue spots. So here's where I realized I actually need two more of those curling ribbons, one for the front and one for the back. So I wrapped another piece around and secured it in place with my Starbond glue, and I curled those up. I love how my Christmas tree turned out, and I found a use for those old ceiling fan globes. Say hello to Trish and Kay. They are the crafting cousins, and they are the ones that came up with this wonderful thrift flip road trip challenge. These girls love to go to the Goodwill store and do lots of thrifting and flips for you. And I'd also like you to say hi to Sammy Veltri from Unicorn Dust Designs. She is the co-host this month. And Sammy has really been on the bandwagon for thrifting lately, so she has lots of videos to share with you. She shares her thrifting hauls and also what she does with them once she gets them home. Links for their channels will be down in the description box below, along with the playlist, so you can see all the other creators on the road trip. DIY number 2, I'm going to use this CD holder that was only $4, and all I could see was that is a nice wooden box. If I could just remove those little CD holder parts, this would make an awesome centerpiece box. And lo and behold, they popped right out so easy. This was just meant to be. Turned to my Fusion Mineral Paint stash, and I picked up the color Manor Green. And I thought that was a really nice Christmas cabiny evergreen color. I used 2 coats, and it came out satiny smooth, and I didn't worry about painting the inside of the box because I'm going to fill it up. I'm going to use a stencil on this project, and this one came from Walmart. It's a folk art stencil, and it was very, very inexpensive. I'm going to say $5 or less, and I thought it was the perfect thing to dress this up. It is a screen stencil, a lot like some name brand, more expensive versions, I won't say. And you could use some of their chalk paste with this if you want to, but I'm just going to use regular chalk paint. So I'm using some white folk art chalk paint. And I am using a stencil brush to apply it in circular motions so that it gets all in the little places. I also taped off the sides. This is not to tape it in place because it is self-adhesive, it sticks. but I didn't want my white paint to go outside of the stencil, so I've got some safety precautions there. Immediately after I'm done painting and the paint is still wet, I remove my tape and reveal what my stencil has made. Very nice, right? But the important thing is we need to make 2 more on each side, so I need to wash off my stencil, and this really doesn't take long. Since the paint is still wet and hasn't dried, it's easily removed with just some hot water, but you can use some dish soap if necessary. Then I lay mine on a dish towel sticky side up and use a hairdryer to blow away any remaining water. It really only takes a couple of minutes, and it is important because if you don't wash it after every use, the paint gets stuck really quickly inside the little stencil pieces and you will not have a good stencil. And you also need to make sure that your first stencil is completely dry before moving on. This particular stencil overlaps just a little bit so you get a seamless look. Don't forget to use tape to protect the side that you already stenciled. I did the stenciling on the front and back sides of the box and thought I needed something on the ends, and you may recall I saved these from a tray that I bought at the Dollar General store, and I'm going to use them on this project. This box was pretty deep, so I thought it would be a good idea to fill it with something on the bottom before I added my Christmas greenery and pine cones. So I'm just using some Dollar Tree brown craft paper. Then I added a strand of pine and 2 strands of these pine cones that I've had for years, and I get them out every year and I use them in something and I just love them. I added a small tree in the middle, and if I would have had 2 more small trees, I probably would have put one on each side, but I didn't have any more of these little trees, but I did have a couple of little piney spriggies, so I just put those in the box with the tree too. DIY number 3 is quick and easy. It's using this old jar candle shade, and I'm going to first paint it up with some Fusion mineral paint, and this time I'm using the color Cashmere. Here's the first coat going on, and a tip with the Fusion mineral paint is thin coats is going to do better for you, so when you put your second coat on, you don't get any lumps or bumps, which this is not prone to lumps and bumps anyway. This paint smooths out so wonderfully that I hardly have an issue. And here's the second coat going on, and you'll see how it completely covers up the designs on this candle shade. And it just so happened that it pretty well matched the inside of the shade and the bottom of the shade, so I didn't have to worry about painting the inside or the outside, which you wouldn't really have to paint the inside anyway with what we're going to do with it, but you could paint the bottom if your shade of paint doesn't really match up with your candle shade. I love it every time. It is so smooth. I'm going to use another kind of stencil to dress up this project. I'm not using all the words. Heavens no, that wouldn't fit on there. So I'm just going to use the snowflakes off of this stencil. This one is an adhesive stencil as well. It's made by Magnolia Design Company, and it's a little bit more expensive than the ones you get at Walmart. See, I didn't know they had the ones at Walmart at first, so I had bought some of these. And I'm going to, again, use just some black chalk paint. You could use the color of your choice. I'm going with black. And same thing with the stencil brush. I'm going to brush it on with a smaller stencil brush. And I'm going to protect the piece by using some painter's tape over the wording of the stencil so I don't get any paint going onto the letters, and I just want the snowflakes. So you see I'm kind of blocking off everything but the snowflake. And the reveal is just what I wanted. I'm going to add more snowflakes, so it's a good idea to make sure that your snowflake is dry or your design is dry before adding another one. This design had several snowflakes of different sizes, so I was lucky that I didn't have to clean my stencil between uses. There was plenty of them to use at one time. And now I guess you can know what we made this for. It's going to be a tree collar for one of those small trees. DIY number 4 is something that I saw on Pinterest, but originally was in a country sampler. So here's some more of those ceiling fan globes, but I wanted them to be all frosted like the ones in the country sampler. So I'm just going to use some spray frost and take them outside and give them a couple of coats. If you have wooden finials that you can put on the top of these, you can skip all these next steps and just glue the finial right to the top. But I didn't have anything like that, so I have to make one myself. And so the first thing I'm going to do is cut out some circles to cover up the holes at the top. So I just traced them out with a pencil and cut them out of chipboard. This is a lightweight chipboard, and so it was easily cut with scissors, but still strong enough to hold. Now we got that done, it comes time to make the finial. Now if you don't have any finials, but you do happen to have some wooden spindles like I did, then you can actually cut some finials out of the spindle. So I asked my precious husband if he would please cut just the ball part and up to the narrowest part to make a finial shape, and I had 2 of them cut. Then they'll go on top just like this. Then I'll use some large wooden beads to finish it off. Now in order for there to be a clanger, there needs to be a hole drilled into the center of the finials so that you can put some jute string through. So I'm just drilling a nice hole right down through the center of both of the finial pieces. I didn't do a great job of getting those centered, but it didn't matter in the end. Now you'll need something that can go down through the finial, because we're going to mark on our chipboard where the hole needs to go, because there needs to be a hole in the chipboard too. So the easiest way I found was to take this skinny paintbrush. I dipped it down in some white paint, and through the hole I went, tapped the bottom, and then I had my mark where I needed to put my hole in the chipboard. Now we just assemble. I used wood glue to attach the finial to the chipboard, but be careful, don't get any glue down into your hole like I did. I got way too much wood glue, so I had to scrape some of that back away and make sure that my hole was still open. And I also used wood glue to attach the large wood bead to the top. Now we have some fabricated finials. So now we need to paint them up, and my first layer of paint is going to be brown because I want them to be antiqued wood. So I'm going to do brown first and then white on top. And while you're painting, get out a couple of smaller wood beads because they're going to be needed painted the same color as your finials. So I'm going to give those a coat of brown paint too. I'm using Fusion Mineral Paint in the color Picket Fence as my top coat. I'm letting some of the brown show through, and I'm using kind of a dry brush technique, and I don't cover all of the chipboard either, so it's all supposed to look wooden. And don't forget to give the same white coat to your small wooden beads. Back to the Starbond glue for putting this together. I'm going to use the thick gel glue around the top of the ceiling fan globe and the spray accelerator on the bottom of the finial piece. Now you need to get some jute string to go down through the finial piece and out the bottom of the ceiling fan globe. So if you need to, and I usually do, I do here, you can tape up the end of your jute string with some Scotch tape, and that helps it from fraying and it's easier to thread through holes. I had to use a paintbrush to help me try to get the jute string started going down through the finial, and then I was able to get it all the way down to the underside and pull it out with some needle nose pliers. You'll notice that the ball on the top of my finial has come loose because I was impatient and I didn't let my wood glue set long enough apparently, so I'm going to fix that before we're done. Now you need to make a big knot, big enough that it can't be pulled back up through the finial, and that's what's going to hold your clanger in place. Now here I jumped the gun. I added my wood bead. I was so excited to have this finished, and I wasn't taking into consideration how long my jute string needed to be, so don't add your wood bead just yet. I realized this when I pulled my jute string up and I saw that my clanger was way too long. But it's an easy fix. I went on and made my loop on the top of the bell for hanging, and then cut the jute string on the end to make my clanger the right size. And I tied a new knot to hold the wood bead in place. And here's where I went back and fixed the balls that were on the top of the finials with some Starbond glue. There's only one final touch, and then these bells will be done. I'm using some farmhouse ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to go around the edge of that chipboard to finish it off. I think they turned out great. You tell me what you think. And finally, DIY number 5, I'm going to make use of this old vinyl record. Actually, I'm not using the record, I'm just using the cover. I'm simply going to cut out the church, and I'm going to put it in this frame that I thrifted at Goodwill. Now let's take a look back at all our Christmas and July thrift flips today. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoy the playlist. The link is in my description box below, along with all the other important things that I used to make my DIYs today. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye!